Number one class in June means little. However, it is Ohio State, and there is some proof of concept to lean on there. Welcome into the Voice of College Football, Buckeyes Live. Right next to me, Kevin Noon, BuckeyeHuddle.com, and of course, the Big Me podcast. Down below, it's Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Huddle as well. Buckeye Weekly is the podcast, and Steve Hellwagon, Senior Big Ten writer there at Bucknuts 247 Sports. Guys, how we doing today?
Doing great.
Yep.
All right. The much to do about the yearly annual excursion south for Kevin as he checks out some of the finest recruits in the land. So, Kevin, of course, people need to follow you to catch the real gold and the complete look, the comprehensive look. But what do you have for us today in regards to what you picked up?
Yeah, 23 days on the road, a lot of fast food, I think it was 6,100 miles driving around, saw a couple of Ohio State commits and plenty of targets. I think of the biggest names that we saw, David Sanders out of North Carolina, the big-time offensive tackle. Not really ready to sell on Ohio State's chances there. I wouldn't say Ohio State leads, but I think Ohio State has done a great job of staying in there. I think it's just going to be a matter of convincing Sanders about the distance not being as much of a factor. They do have an international airport in Charlotte Douglas Airport, so it does fly to Columbus, Ohio, and I'm sure he would get some good NIL money. So even if he could treat his parents to plenty of trips up to Columbus to check him out. We had a chance to see a couple of big-time defensive linemen out of the state of Alabama with Zion Grady and with Malik Autry. Autry is an Auburn commit. The pair are going to come up and take official visits the same weekend. I think that Ohio State feels that it has a really good shot at landing both of them. Of course, you have to flip one of them. But I think that Grady and Autry would like to go to the same school. And when you look at their lists, Ohio State is one of a few schools that kind of fits the bill there. And then one other name that I know Ohio State fans are very concerned about is Dorian Brew out of Conroe, Texas, a northern suburb of Houston. There's been, a lot of information contradicting other information about where Ohio State stands. I think Ohio State has a really good shot on that one. I think that one's either Ohio State or Texas. He's kind of a little bit of a homebody in a lot of ways, so I think he wants to be near family. Being at UT would have him close to his dad. Being at Ohio State would have him close to his mom. Yeah, you got all of that there, but you can go to BuckeyeHuddle.com and check it all out. Again, it's been a couple of weeks, but I've just had a whole hell of a lot going on and have not been able to jump on any shows. So this is my welcome back to being on air.
And welcome back. It's great to see you. Great to have you, as always, of course. And so, Kevin, I'll hit you with this. Are these conversations with these athletes, of course, they're not going to be upfront about this necessarily, but is there a thread of something a little bit different because of the NIL component?
Yeah, I think I asked everybody about NIL in a series piece that hopefully I'll have out in the next week or two. And there certainly are considerations there for NIL, but what Ohio State has to do and has been doing is do you want the short-term payoff or the long-term windfall? And Ohio State has gotten better with how its NIL program is in the short term. But Ohio State also has quite the track record for players getting drafted and the deals that they sign and getting to second and third contracts where the real money can be. So you do have to kind of fight that last second bag drop that may happen from somebody else. And I'm not trying to sit there and say that makes it, dirty or whatever. That's the rules. You can do whatever now, largely. It is the wild, wild west. But, Ohio State really has been targeting guys in a lot of ways that, kind of at least understand the picture. Now, does that mean that it's going to work 100 out of 100 times? Absolutely not. It's recruiting still. At the end of the day, that's what it is. But, I think that you do have to kind of vet guys at the beginning. And if it's just going to be a who can drop the largest bag at the beginning, Ohio State probably moves on.
I would expect in most cases, if somebody gets a bag dropped at $700,000 and the next highest bid is 350, they're gone. That's a substantial difference. But I gotta think that Ohio State still has a huge advantage because of all the things that we know about the program, in addition to the money, that if they're at least competitive in that range, that most players will see that and value the NFL development, the quest for a championship, and everything else that they bring to the table. And there's still other considerations to be made by these student athletes.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. And the thing is that whenever you think you kind of get your arms around what NIL looks like, it's just going to keep changing and changing and changing and changing. You're never going to be able to get this genie back in the bottle. You're never really going to fully understand, because it's kid by kid. I mean, it's not even year by year. It's not like this is the year of the this and this is the year of the that. It's player by player that all of this is. So, again, it just makes the job of recruiting players that much more complicated and confusing. And those of us who have to try and track all of that news down, it ain't fun. It ain't fun, let me tell you.
Question for the room before we hit Steve with the camp schedule for this week. Have you guys honed in on what these NIL numbers look like and how accurate do you think they are? Do you have a pretty good beat on them?
They're all fake. There's actual money, but I don't think any of the numbers are accurate. At least, like you saw Nebraska's AD come out saying Ohio State and Oregon are spending like $23 million in NIL. And it's like, how does he know that? Where is that information coming from? You've got a lot of different places that will give you information, whether it's like if you've got sources at collectives or sources at places like Open Doors, like not necessarily Open Doors, but people in that realm where they can give you figures. But even that stuff is only a fraction of what is actually going on, or just a portion. And I think everybody is so protective with their information because it's kind of it's almost proprietary. Like you're not going to give them all of the actual true information. And so I don't know what is it 70% of the numbers being talked about, like whatever the $13 million that people are saying Ohio State is, like when it's coming from the coach, that's one thing. And that's just what he was asking for. I don't know that we know that what they actually got. I do know that players are taken care of, but in terms of, is it 13 million? Is it 23 million? Just any number that you hear, I would say knock it down by, take it down to 60% of that. And maybe that's closer, but that may just be the cynic in me.
If one of the parking lots at the University of Texas is any indication, yes, the players are being taken care of. Steve, but anything on this?
I'll say there's always been nice cars in college parking lots. So this isn't new. Now, are they even nicer? Yes, because you're not just seeing the Chargers and things like that. But there have always been nice cars in school parking lots.
As far as NIL, I kind of echo everything that's been said. Somebody was texting me right there in the middle of that exchange about camps and different things. It is, as Tony said, this is something that schools don't want everybody to know their business, what the going rate is for a starting quarterback or a running back or whatever, and to keep the costs down, obviously. But at the same time, they need to promote that we pay top dollar. So it's kind of like, catch as catch can on this whole thing. If you can find somebody reputable that'll tell you what it is, then so be it. But I'm not in the business of reporting. I joked with Jake Diebler the other day, you're becoming the head coach at Ohio State at a time when you're about going to have to be, and this was a funny term, a buddy of mine was doing a fantasy draft one time, and he was asking salary cap questions, and the commissioner was like, we've got a regular Carmen Polonese over here on our hands or whatever. You have to be Carmen Policy now in terms of managing the salary cap. And I joked with Jake Diebler, like, you're going to have to be part part basketball coach, part capologist going forward, when it comes in-house and the coaches determine who gets what out of the pool of money that's available. And he immediately said, whatever happens, I want the mechanism known as the foundation on my side going forward, because they stepped up and they helped him land those 4 transfer portal players that they got for basketball. And I assume they still have their hand a little bit in football, even though I think there were some powers that were trying to nudge them out of the football space because of some different things that happened. But yeah, I just look at it. My dogs are going to go nuts because the mail person just pulled up. But at any rate, I look at it that it's all going to be come out in the wash. I think that the strong schools are going to survive. And Diebler said he thinks Ohio State's going to be in the forefront of college basketball because of NIL. And I would assume that means they're only going to be in the very, very much forefront of football because of NIL.
Well, Steve, at one point you told us, I believe in the chat, that we may have camps going on like Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. One of them obviously got cleared out of the way to make way for our show. But what have we picked up this week thus far?
I'll let the others answer this because my dogs are going crazy just a second.
I should have picked up on that tip from a few seconds ago, but I thought we had cleared the way. Tony, what you got?
Yeah, today is kind of an overflow 7-on-7 day, so not as imperative that we be there. And so we had camps. We had Camp Tuesday. We'll have another one tomorrow. Got to see some interesting guys the last yesterday. I think the first guy I'll start with is Eric McFadden, who is already at IMG. He's going to be a freshman this year. Has an offer from Ohio State. Has offers from Georgia. He's a wide receiver. Offer from Florida State, Arizona, schools like that, and is going to be a freshman. He's a 2028, which is an insane thing to think about, but he was really, really impressive. Super quick. Reminded me of who was the guy from the slot receiver at West Virginia a few years back who has ridiculous highlights.
Austin?
Yes, exactly. So there's some of that with him, and but he's at his top 2 schools. His dream schools are LSU and Ohio State. LSU has not offered yet. They eventually will. But to think that he's going into his freshman year, he's like, yeah, I'm going to decide between LSU and OSU. It's like, yeah, we'll see. And as I wrote in the story, I put in the story today, he's like 1,270 days away from being able to sign. So we'll see if anything changes between now and then. But he was really impressive. Tavian St. Clair is always there. It's interesting. He's kind of like he's a camp counselor at this point. I don't know if he's getting money like the players that can work camps to get paid for it and coaches at this point, because he's there all the time. He's working with the quarterbacks. He's going first, showing them, basically what to do, but also getting work in. And so it's just there's always people visiting in terms of recruits. So it's always good to have the leader of the recruiting class there. And I think that's one of the benefits of having an Ohio quarterback as opposed to like the California quarterback who I can't come over for all of these camps and visits, but I live, 30 minutes away. So, Tavian St. Clair can make it for any kind of thing they need. And he's always available, it seems.
Yeah, I agree on Tony's assessment of Eric McFarland. He's fantastic. He could put his foot in the ground, change position, just really had a wonderful day. Nobody could cover him. And we're talking about guys several years older than him that couldn't cover him. We also had a chance to get a real first look at a name you're going to want to know. His name is Angelo Smith, and he's no ordinary Smith. He happens to be the younger brother of Jeremiah Smith. Now, he's a class of 2027, so a year older than McFarland, but Angelo is still needs that growth spurt to happen because he is very much a slot right now, and it needs to kind of fill out. I mean, you just got to remember how young some of these players are that we're talking about. Ohio State, rising seniors are 25, rising juniors are 26. So he's rising sophomore as a 27. So, not even thinking about a learner's permit or anything like that. And, I was very impressed with him. Brody Keefe, a talented wide receiver, class of 26 out of Charlotte, North Carolina, Myers Park High School. Already a frequent visitor to Ohio State, doesn't necessarily need to see anything. He wanted just to come out and work under Brian Hartline. I will have a story on him coming later this afternoon after the show when I have a chance to sit down and write it. That's kind of where that one is. A lot of interesting targets at quarterback aside from Tavian St. Clair. I think the biggest, most immediate name is going to be 2026 quarterback out of American Heritage in Florida, Dia Bell, the son of Raja Bell, the former NBA star. I think that one is going to come to a head here pretty soon with a decision. He's kind of finishing up his visits, and then it's going to go into decision mode. Don't necessarily have a date there, but I like Ohio State's chances there. I wouldn't be putting in any of these, crystal ball type of things quite yet, because I haven't convinced myself to go that far. And one player that I'm going to mention that it's just a shame how, if he were a year younger, I think he would get offered, but just with the glut of receivers that Ohio State has in 2025 in that class of what it's looking at. But Genoa Alford, who is out of the state of Florida, he just to remind everybody who was there, Tony and Steve, he was the kid in the blue T-shirt that went and was able to make some spectacular high point catches. Somebody's going to get a steal with him. He's not going to end up at Ohio State, but when I'm asked about what I was most impressed with at camp, I have to put Genoa on there because I was very impressed. He comes out of the South Florida Express program, 7-on-7, so that he's already had to pass a litany of tests to just even be involved with the 7-on team that is South Florida Express.
Yeah, and 24/7 says his only offer right now is Pitt. So, but yeah, he was really, really good yesterday.
Yeah, there was a lot going on yesterday. I missed the first 2 days of camp last week because I was in Hilton Head, so I got to go yesterday for the first time. Very impressed with a lot of the talent that we saw. Our guys, Bill Kurlick and Pat Murphy, came back and noted that 7 players were offered yesterday, plus some of these underclassmen already had offers, like Brody Keefe that Kevin mentioned. I talked to him as well, and he said that Ohio State and LSU, or rather Ohio State and Tennessee, I think were maybe his top 2 schools at this point. And, I guess we'll see how that turns out. He can't sign, obviously, till a year from December. Dia Bell, outstanding quarterback from Florida, was there. The number 21 player overall in the country. He was probably the highest rated player, along with Tavian St. Clair, who's one of the higher rated players in the 25 class. They were both there throwing the football. Some other guys, they offered a 2028 quarterback, Neiman Lawrence from Miami, Florida. He's with the South Florida Express as well. And they offered him. He was one of the 7 new offers yesterday, along with wide receiver Mike Brown from Spring, Texas. Let's see, Eric McFarland, as you guys laid out, the 2028 wide receiver at IMG by way of Las Vegas, Nevada. Dakota Garant, maybe you pronounce
That's
it
how
Grant.
I'm saying it until I'm
Grant.
told otherwise.
Yeah, Guerrant, and he's from Harper Woods, Michigan, 2027. So Ohio State trying to make some inroads up there. Braden Robinson, wide receiver from Texas, Red Oak, Texas. He's the number 175 prospect right now in the 2026 class. He was offered. Here's a stud, D'Angelo White from Cleveland St. Joe's, a 2027 tight end. He is something in the 6'3", 220 range, give or take an inch and 10 pounds either direction. He is a stud. He ran a sub 4.840, somewhere in the 4.7s. My friend Mark Porter from Scouting Ohio told me somewhere in the 4.7s range. And Ryan Day, Chip Kelly, and Keenan Bailey, the tight ends coach, were all fawning over him yesterday, watching him run and make catches, and they ended up today offering him. So that was big. Another one, a linebacker, Leafau Loumah, something of this effect, Loumah, I believe, or Meh. He is from Sammamish, Washington, which is the same alma mater as JT Tuimoloau. And JT came out on the field and spent some time with Leofau and some of the other guys from Washington who were there. And Leofau, a 2027 linebacker offered by James Laurinaitis yesterday. And one more guy, Camden Portis, a cornerback 2026 from Charlotte, North Carolina, Myers Park, the same school that the wide receiver Brody Keefe is from, same class, 2026. So we'll see what's going on. And back on D'Angelo White, he's from the same high school as Bo Jackson, who just committed to the Buckeyes from Cleveland St. Joe's. So obviously they'll be keeping tight rein on D'Angelo White. He's going to be one of the top players in Ohio, I predict, for 2027. Oh,
We've got an ACC.
one more note. I got this in. Obviously, they're having the 7-on-7 over there today for some of the teams that didn't make the big 7-on-7 next week. But Jake Cook, offensive lineman, committed to Louisville from Westerville North, a 2025 prospect. So he's going into his senior year. He is at Ohio State today and working out one-on-one with the offensive line coach, Justin Fry. So we'll see if Fry sees what he likes to make an offer to Cook and then ultimately try and flip him from Louisville to his hometown school, Ohio State. I don't think it would take much to get him to flip. I think Cook is a Buckeye through and through if offered by Ohio State.
We've got an ACC deep dive coming up tonight, 8:30 Eastern time on the Miami, Clemson, and Florida State channels. What does that mean? Well, of course, if you're following the news, you know that the ACC is up against it in court against Clemson and Florida State. We are going to look at the various metrics of the candidates that will probably leave the ACC in regards to their athletic programs, football, academics, culture, and otherwise with Tony Altimore. That's coming up Wednesday. That is tonight, 8:30 Eastern time on the Clemson, Florida State, and Miami channels. And then we're going to do the same with the Big Ten deep dive, looking at USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. No, they're not going anywhere, but they're coming to the Big Ten, and to make those comparisons with their new colleagues in the Big Ten. All right. I wanted to highlight before we get to our super chat, our guy Ferris on the Michigan channel commenting here. Both Ohio State and Michigan fans are happy with Ryan Day as Ohio State head coach. See, we can all get along. All right. So I crashed the Michigan show last night, and I got so sick of hearing the Ryan Day talk. These people are fascinated with Ryan Day, just fascinated with him, that I'm not trying to play a big shot and I don't have the money to lose, but I put up $1,000 if Ryan Day gets fired this year. So I kept hearing Ryan Day is going to get fired. Michigan's going to beat him. He's going to get fired. So here's the deal, folks. I'm not just going to throw out $1,000 and trust anyone that, of course, if I lose, then you're going to expect $1,000. And if I win, then you're going to be nowhere to be found. But for anybody out there, and there were all sorts of people in chat, there were a few at least that said that they would put up $1,000. We'll find a third party. I'll deposit my $1,000. You deposit your $1,000. We'll have a person that can hold the money. So we have both confirmed that we have put up the money. And if Ryan Day gets fired, then you will be the winner of $1,000, or vice versa. Again, I don't want to lose $1,000, but I figure I've got at least like 10-1 odds in my favor. So I will take it. There you go. All right, let's get to the super chat here coming down. So we've got Tyler. We appreciate the contribution, sir. Good morning, guys. I have a question. We always talk about the negatives in NIL. What are the positives for the NIL program?
Well, I think it's a positive for the kids who are getting compensated at this point. I mean, it's always been the discussion of is a tuition and room and board, is that all worthy when you're sitting there making a boatload of money for your school, putting yourself at risk or whatever. I think that, this is a chance for, these kids to be fairly compensated at that point. Again, I don't think anybody's ever going to, and I'm not saying that Tyler's trying to get convinced one way or the other, but I think that you're on one side or the other side of the NIL argument, and nobody is defecting from one side to the other side. It's just the people that are like, we've had this collegiate model, this amateur model for all these years, and that's where it needs to stay, and that's just how it has to be. And then the other people are like, we kind of have to evolve or die, because ultimately, if you have a situation of where there's not compensation for the athletes, you're going to have another pipeline start, whether it's like NFL Junior or something like that, and you're going to have a situation, and it's going to bring this whole house of cards tumbling down. So I'm not saying that that's necessarily a positive of keeping the wolves off of the doorstep, but I do think that ultimately, the NC2A needed to do something sooner, because it could have done something in a much smaller measure that would have, maybe been easier to regulate. But you done screwed up, and now we're here where we are.
Yeah, when you have NBC, Fox, and CBS all paying the Big Ten $300 million a year to televise games, and you have whatever untold millions, multi-millions of dollars coming in through this new 12-team playoff, you really don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to being able to pay the players. And is the ACC and the Big 12 going to be able to pay the players at the same rate as the Big 10? No, unlikely, because the Big 10, the SEC are going to make top dollar in this space for television. But certainly the year 2024 has finally arrived, where the athletes who produce the revenue are going to be able to enjoy some chunk of it beyond just the cost of tuition, room and board, a little bit of cash for living expenses, et cetera. So, that to me, it's well overdue. These guys have earned the money, and to me, they're going to get to partake in some of it. And, the football and men's basketball people have been, making the money for the rowing people, the baseball people, and everybody else to live kind of high on the hog all these years. And now they're going to actually be able to enjoy some of the wealth that comes from their efforts. And it's a 46 or 47 week a year job to play major college football. I mean, you get little to no time off. They took 2 weeks off after the end of the spring semester. And when people on the message boards found that out, they about died. They're like, well, why aren't they working out? Well, because you can't work out year round. I mean, your body's got to rest, your mind's got to rest. And Coach Day said everybody came back in fit and ready to go. So that's how you do it. So at any rate, I'm good with it. I think it's well overdue. I think it's going to be a positive. It's just we are in a position still, and we've been in a position basically from COVID on 4 years ago of this is where we are. This is where we're trying to get to. And right now we're about right here. So we still have a long way to go before this is all shaken out to where we have harmony once again in college athletics, if we ever do achieve true harmony. Of course, that's like saying we're going to get the Republicans and Democrats to agree. There was a note on Congress yesterday. Somebody slipped something into a larger bill.
What?
That college athletes will not be considered W-2 employees. I presume they would be classified as 1099 employees under this federal legislation. That is like some overall spending bill. They just kind of slipped that in there that, as a favor to the NCAA and the schools. So somebody got lobbied really, really hard to do that, because I don't know that holds a whole lot of water either. But
I'll say I'll go with Kevin on this. The positives for the NIL program for NIL is that you now have parents that don't have to. Mom doesn't have to work a second job. The lights stay on. There's a car at home. There's fewer stresses for parents, which means there's fewer stresses for the kids at college putting all this work in. So like that alone is such a benefit. Just the mental stress reduced from that. That, I mean, that is a huge positive. And then the kids, of course, having money in their pocket and being able to do it legally and not have to kind of run around and hope you don't get caught from the $100 handshakes from the rich folks who love football. And so now it keeps everything on the up and up. So just the individual benefits, I think are huge. I think there's the people that are hurt might be the construction companies that won't be able to build as many buildings on campuses anymore because the money's going to have to go to the players. So, prayers to those folks that they can still keep finding other places to build buildings that nobody's using, and Godspeed to them.
It's been my experience that from all the feedback we get here and in my personal life is that for the most part, it sounded like people wanted these players to be compensated. Once they were compensated, then they want to control how much they personally feel is acceptable. So people are uncomfortable with other people making more money, especially if they're younger or less experienced in life than they do. And that has never been, for the most part of the equation in this society, in our culture as Americans, that you are paid based on the value that you bring as determined by the market. And that's all there is to it. So the people that are watching support the sport. So if you don't want the players to be paid, don't support the sport.
I will say, not to go too off, but then we can get back to talking about Ryan Day. But capitalists, they love their capitalism until they see an 18-year-old making $400,000 a year. Then it becomes an issue.
Yeah, there certainly is a level of either conscious or subconscious jealousy at that point, because you're going out and you're working your job, and by all accounts you're doing a good job and you're making a certain amount, and then you see somebody going out there playing a game, making all of this money, who's 18, 19 years old, and it's like, no, I wanted compensation. I just wanted them to have beer money. Yeah. And we skipped over beer money and everything else, and we went into real money. We went into real money with cars and everything else. And I don't know if attitudes are necessarily going to change overnight on it, but I think that one of the big concerns, one of the big frustrations a lot of people have is just the unregulated nature of it, because it just seems so random and haphazard in a lot of ways. But I don't know if we're ever going to see a point of where we're going to have a system that is truly going to be enforceable from school to school.
Well, and it's difficult politically to be against it, because in terms of
because you
feel bad. Well, you feel bad for like Georgia Southern, who could lose a quarterback after 3 years to another school. And it's like these group of 5 schools can't keep their quarterbacks for 4 years, 5 years. Daquan Finn, Toledo would love to have him, but he goes to Baylor for money, for exposure, that sort of thing. And it's like, gosh, that's too bad that a school can't keep somebody that they found. It's like, well, they can, but they just have to pay him. But you would like to see them stick around, but also if you are saying like, gosh, if you're saying this is a bad thing, then you're saying that players making money is a bad thing, and that's a bad plank to be out on over the side of a boat if you want to be there.
Speaking to the jealousy side of things, there's one thing to be jealous in your mind and reason it out. It's another thing to be jealous in your heart. Do I have moments of jealousy to say, yeah, this kid's making $500,000? I'm not. Sure, that's human nature. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty acceptable. But my reason takes over to say, if the industry supports it, and as long as it's on the up and up, and again, the industry supports it, the value in the marketplace, and a lot of people like to, at least in the conversations that we have here, a lot of people like to tie value to physical labor. That strikes me as odd, considering in this day and age when most of us not do very much physical labor is connected to our job and the value of our job, that they suddenly want to say that there's physical labor involved. Well, of course, their physical labor is pretty high on the scale. as football players, but that there is some type of toil factor that needs to be weighed into it. And again, that has nothing to do with it. How valuable are you? That's pretty much what it comes down to.
And I would venture that every college athlete that is getting NIL money, like money enough to make you raise your eyebrow, is doing more physical labor than anybody that is complaining about it.
I don't know. I have to carry you and Tom all the time, so maybe I should get some NIL.
That's only a few hours a week. This
True.
is a few hours a day for athletes. So,
well, another pretty good one got plucked up by the Buckeyes this week. Number 1 rated player in the state of Maryland, according to 247 Sports, 4th rated safety, another top 50 player. And when you're looking at top 50 players in this 2025 class at this point, you got to go down a list of ways to find them. It's typically like the first or second player on a team, but for the Buckeyes, it's like 7 top 50 players, Steve, at this point, with one Faheem Delane.
Yeah, from Olney, Maryland, Our Lady Good Counsel. Is this the same school that Dwayne Haskins attended? Does that sound right?
he was the Bullis school, right?
Oh, he was the Bullis school. Okay.
But there have been good counsel people at Ohio State. I know that.
Yeah, good counsel. This again, they just continue this run on defensive backs, and it's like if their defense could just be corners and safeties, they would win the world championship every year because they've got the best ones in the country committed to them. This guy Delane is the number 4 safety. I had somebody on my chat the other night. And he's a little further down the list than some of these guys they've got, with Tavian St. Clair, number 2 overall, Devin Sanchez, number 4 overall, and Naeem Offord, the cornerback. Sanchez and Offord are both cornerbacks. He's number 6 overall. Carter Lowe, the offensive lineman, number 33, and then Faheem Delane at number 50. So that is 5 of the top 50 are currently committed to Ohio State, and they're probably in position to land 2 or 3 more. And it was interesting. Somebody in my chat the other day wanted to know how realistic it would be for them to get 5 of the top 6. And of course, Bryce Underwood, the number 1 player on the list, quarterback from Michigan, is committed to LSU. I said, well, what it would come down to is they got to find a way to get David Sanders Jr., the big-time offensive lineman from Charlotte Providence Day School. He's number 3 overall. Got to find a way to get him in, and he's got a visit upcoming to Ohio State, as I understand it. And then the other one is Duncanville, Texas wide receiver DeCorian Moore. He visited Ohio State recently. He's number 5. And Moore, he visited Ohio State recently, and Ohio State is up there for him. It seems like it may be Ohio State, LSU, Texas. Texas is probably picked by everybody as the one to beat for him. But it would be unprecedented if one school were to land 5 of the top 6 players on a given list. And yet Ohio State's fighting, competing for number 3 David Sanders and number 5 DeCorian Moore just as hard as anything. And obviously, again, I think for me, and we talk about this all the time on the show, the focus, I mean, they're great. They're killing it on skill position players, quarterbacks, wide receivers, DBs. Where they need the help the most is offensive line, defensive line. And, that's where they've really got to put a lot more emphasis, I think, going forward with this class in 2026 as well.
Yeah, with Faheem Delane, he was somebody who I think was ranked a little bit higher earlier in the cycle, has kind of been caught by the pack, at least according to the recruiting services. A lot of times people will be like, why did this guy get dropped? Well, it's not necessarily a guy getting dropped. It's a matter of other guys getting fully evaluated and moving up. But any way you slice it, Delane is a very talented player, number 34 overall in the 247 composite rankings. You're talking about a stud. I mean, and you look at the class, you look at the way everything is set up, and now what is the next step? Is it Dorian Brew? Is it Trey McNutt? Is it both? Is it neither? I mean, I think if Ohio State just sat there and said, we're done, this is going to be a defensive back class for the ages. You bring in one or the other, then it's, that much more amplified. And then if you were able to bring in both, do the math yourself. But I think that Brew is much more likely than McNutt at this point. But Delane always felt like a major must get. Let's not forget he has a brother who plays at Virginia Tech. So there's a lot of concern that he might go and follow his brother to Blacksburg and go, be a Hokie. But credit to the Ohio State defensive coaches and staying on him. And at no point did I ever really feel like this one was getting away from Ohio State. I'd always felt like it was a matter of when. And when was a couple days ago. And now we stand here. And, I think we're going to see in the next 7 weeks a lot of dominoes start to fall, because I think a lot of guys are going to want to decide before the start of their senior seasons.
I actually saw an Athlon Sports today. I thought Tony might have something to add,
Yeah,
but
well,
I think Kevin pretty much cleaned it up there.
No meat on that bone.
So I know to pause there for a couple seconds. I actually saw an Athlons today that they were considering Kansas State to have upgraded their quarterback situation with Avery Johnson, who played one game last year in the bowl game and looks to be a pretty elusive athlete, but that's all he is at this point, is an athlete trying to play quarterback. And he's better than Will Howard, according to Athlons. That's the statement.
Well, I have two thoughts on this. And Tony did a deep dive film breakdown, and he's probably watched more of Howard throw than all of us combined, the four of us and anybody who's watching this. Tony's probably seen every throw the guy made at Kansas State, or probably 7-8 games of it in his breakdown. So was he, the second coming of Tom Brady, or, John Elway, or Joe Burrow at Kansas State? No, nobody is telling you that. We all readily admit he was a little bit spotty at times, and yet he does bring the ability to run in a frame and with an arm that is also capable of completing throws. He walked into the building with one more championship ring on his finger than everybody else in the building combined. Keep that in mind. He did win a Big 12 championship, beat a TCU team that was undefeated. So, there are a lot of pluses and intangibles and upsides about this guy that I don't think people are fully taking into account. We don't know what kind of supporting cast he had. Obviously, they were good enough to win the Big 12 last year. This past year, they took a step back. I think everybody readily admits that. I think Howard potentially can be a step up from McCord. Is he Fields or Stroud? No. Does he have to be Fields or Stroud for them to win the national championship? No, because it's the supporting cast has to play better as well. So there's a lot of ways around the bend on that. And my other thought on this came from one of our 24/7 people who was at a camp down in the Overtime Elite, whoever had the big 7-on-7 event this past weekend. There was somebody from Ohio State who was there. Not going to say it was a player, not going to say who it may have been, but somebody associated with Ohio State who was there and said that in their mind, Julian Sayin deserves a chance to be the starting quarterback for Ohio State in 2024 based on what he saw this spring. Now, honestly, we didn't get to see much of it. We got to see like the student appreciation practice, the spring game, and warm-ups a couple of other days, and that was about it. So I don't know that any of them won the job on the basis of what we all saw, and I think that speaks to why the job hasn't been put on anybody just yet. So I just shared with you kind of an overall, 5 mile up in the air view. That is Howard the Messiah and the Savior? No, I don't think necessarily he is. I don't think he has to be. And I think it's only a great thing that people think that Sayin is good enough to play. But again, you put a true freshman in there against Michigan on the road at Oregon and Penn State, it's probably not going to turn out as well as you would hope, typically. But I'll defer to Tony. He watched much more of Will Howard than I ever have, and if I'll listen to what this fella has to say about it.
And I remember talking about it at the time. I still don't know how well he can throw downfield because he didn't do it much at Kansas State, and they didn't have the receivers to do it. So he's going to open a brand new world into what he is able to do or what he's asked to do at Ohio State. And we'll all find out together whether or not he can do that. But I would expect, if he can just do what Kyle McCord did in the passing game, I think the running game will carry them. The defense will carry them. Avery Johnson, really, really outstanding athlete. And I think he threw the ball more than 5 times in maybe 4 games last year. So he was rotating here and there to kind of be a change of pace guy for them. But in terms of, choosing one over the other for Kansas State, it's if you keep Will Howard for one last year, you're probably losing a guy that you really, really like that you could have for another 3 years. So this is a decision that we see all the time in sports, where you have to take the younger guy with the higher upside, perhaps, that you're going to have for longer than the guy that what his ceiling has been with you. So we see that in the NFL, we see that in the NBA, we see that now in college football with the portal. You choose the guy, all things being equal, you go with the guy that has more years and you feel like can do similar things or get you where Will Howard got you. So, I see people talk about how, Will Howard got benched at Kansas State. No, he was still starting. I mean, he was still playing the last few games and starting, and Avery Johnson wasn't. And so, we'll see what Will Howard does this year. Very good athlete, strong arm. I have really not much of a clue on terms of how accurate he's going to be, down the field, like 20 yards. And I have no idea what he's going to look like throwing it 50 yards down the field. But I think Ryan Day and Chip Kelly have kind of built up some credit in terms of finding quarterbacks and developing quarterbacks and putting quarterbacks in a position to win, because for as much as Kyle McCord was vilified last year, he still threw for 3,170 yards with 24 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, completing 66% of his passes, which before, Troy Smith does that and he wins the Heisman, but he's got also, a win over Michigan to show for it.
And now a word from our sponsor. Love what I do as a sports commentator. I have definitely been blessed. I enjoy my career. But I got to say, if I could turn back time, I would learn the business side of sports management, how to manage people, how to manage projects, how to manage situations. And then there's also those times in which you feel stuck in a job, stuck in a career, just feeling that there's a dead end and wondering and waiting, when is that break going to happen? Well, unfortunately, I got to tell you, that break is not coming unless you make it happen. Sports is your passion. You love it, you live it, you breathe it. Why not make your passion your career? Introducing Southern New Hampshire University, our sponsor. At SNHU, you will learn the business side of sports management principles, and how to gather and analyze data. This degree will help you prepare for a career as an athletic director, sports information director, marketing manager, and other exciting roles in the sports industry. You'll be able to tap into SNHU's network of graduates working in sports-related organizations. You'll also have the opportunity to take advantage of an internship or an experiential learning course within the field. Your courses are taught by faculty with real-world experience, so you'll have opportunities to connect with people in the industry. And when you graduate, SNHU will be right there to help you with your job search. SNHU is accredited, nonprofit, and has radically affordable tuition. SNHU was voted one of the country's most innovative universities by U.S. News and World Report. Just go to snhu.edu/VOCFB. The link's also in my description section down below to see if you qualify for SNHU's sports management program. You might be eligible for financial aid or have existing college credits that could fast-track your degree at SNHU. Click the link to get started. Your exciting sports management degree at SNHU awaits you. Do it now. And how do we get that guy off the screen? Help.
There you go.
All right, I'll figure it out. But
that's it, folks.
Next topic.
Mark's going to throw to Mark. Here we go.
That was actually part of our delay before. I blame Tony for that, but actually I couldn't find the video file. So that's what that was. But yeah. We'll clean this up at some point. I'm out of topics. Is there anything else we needed to hit on today? Camps Thursday and Friday, Steve?
Thursday of this week, then there's one more day of regular camp and a big 7-on-7 day next week. Those may be Monday, Tuesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday. I am going to miss those because I'm going to Pittsburgh to follow my beloved Reds on Monday night and Tuesday night. Going to meet up with some friends over there and take in. I've been to PNC Park. It's been a number of years, but it's one of the best parks, obviously, in baseball to see a game. And Reds, the last two games notwithstanding, have been on a bit of a heater of late. So I need to beat the Guards tonight, not the Indians, but the Guards. Beat them tonight and get back on track and take it from there. I know half the Ohio State fan base is probably Guardians, Indians fans. Bill Kurlick, who works with us, refuses to refer to them as the Guardians. He's one of the biggest Indians fans on the planet. So there you go.
Can I show you guys this? Can you see this? Oh, I lost it. It's the Phil Steele digital guide is now out. So
Uh-oh.
Nice.
Can you spoil it and give us the top 5 from Phil Steele?
Of course.
Now he has his power poll, which is one thing, and
Right.
he has his own personal rankings, which are another.
Let me see. Which one can I find here first?
Is he taking the road less traveled and going with Tosu?
I believe both polls had Georgia 1 and Ohio State 2, as I skimmed it the other day.
Sorry about your damned luck.
Here, everywhere, you're seeing Ohio State being number 2, and yet it's also natty or bust for Ohio State. And if they don't win it all, somebody should be fired. It's like, well, shouldn't they be the runaway by far number 1 if they're expected and must win it all? And if they don't, then heads need to roll. Like,
It's been 10 years, Tony. It's way overdue.
is
It's
that
been
right?
10 years.
That's too
GD
bad.
it.
Phil Steele's power poll: Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Oregon 3, Texas 4, Penn State 5,
Whoa.
Michigan 12.
Whoa. Now, see, somebody has reading comprehension. Although that Penn State's a little hard.
I was going to say, I don't think somebody's
Yeah.
watched Drew Allard all that much.
2 interceptions last year. 2 interceptions.
They have to go to West Virginia the first game. They handled them pretty good last year in State College, but I don't know if that was selected for a night game or I think Fox has that at noon, which I think the West Virginia people are all upset about. But yeah, I went to a night game in West Virginia. It was an event. It was a lot of fun when they played OSU back in '98. So, yeah.
Let's not be surprised if Drew Aller improves by leaps and bounds this year.
He's got
His
Julian Fleming.
receivers all left, though. I mean, Julian Fleming may be his best receiver. I don't know.
That would be better than last year.
Mm-hmm. And then his preseason top 40, which are not the power ratings. These are how they I don't know which one is which he thinks is best. The other is how he thinks they'll finish.
Yeah.
Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Oregon 3, Texas 4, Penn State 5 again, Michigan at 9, Iowa 11.
Whoa.
Iowa
does catch a break in the scheduling, so they only
fire
have
Hunter
Ohio
Biden Jr. and look what you get.
State.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I was taking a bit of a break. No USC, no Oregon,
Hmm.
no
Good
Michigan,
defense.
no Penn State.
Offense
Whoa.
that'll score at least 17 points a game.
They've got a competent offensive coordinator. He can at least, yeah.
2 quarterbacks who have started in the Big Ten before. So
We did a quarterback breakdown during the Kirk Ferentz era yesterday. Folks, check that out. It's some scintillating.
well,
Drew
you know what?
Tate,
Don't
was
sell
very
yourself short. Yeah, I mean they had a run there where it's like
very plucky.
you just everybody would just step up, like Ricky Stanzi and whoever else, and
Yeah, CJ Beathard.
yeah, and it would be like, oh, okay, and then even Spencer Petras a few years ago was decent, or is that when things started going bad?
Nate Stanley was decent.
Nate Stanley, boom, that's
Yeah.
who I was thinking of. See, like I told you,
02,
they're already
bad.
bad.
02 and they went undefeated in the Big Ten. They had somebody pretty good. Like
Brad Banks.
Brad Banks. Yeah.
Who
He
was
was,
a
they lost-
Heisman finalist.
Lost
he was
Iowa
pretty good.
that year.
Heisman
Iowa
finalist.
State.
Yes.
And got killed by USC in the Orange Bowl. So my buddy is out there at Sun Devil Stadium, and the game ends, and the celebration kind of winding down. He goes into the bathroom on his way out of the stadium, and everybody's in there raising hell, all the Ohio State people. And it gets quiet for half a second, and somebody charms out of nowhere. Still would have lost Iowa. and everybody in the bathroom just uproarious laughter. Still wouldn't have beaten Iowa because the Iowa people were a little bit miffed. But
Yes, tie for the Big Ten championship, but they lost to some. They probably lost to
35-10.
Iowa State that last year.
35-10, they lost
Well,
to
yeah,
USC.
yeah, they got blown out by USC, but they lost a non-conference game to a lousy team.
Yeah.
But yeah, those 09 and 2010 games were scares. Both of those against the Hawkeyes that would have lost Big Ten championships. So
That release yesterday by ESPN and ABC was spectacular. Jesus God, they've got 2-3 great games every week. I mean, somebody over there engaged their brain and said, yeah, we're going to have all the good teams play each other and let the chips fall where they may. And I mean, that schedule is crafted, and they're going to win a lot of time slots with the games they're putting out there. I'll tell you that.
Kevin, what are you working on this week?
I got a couple stories left over from camp that I'm going to try and get through today. Then obviously we reload and go to camp again tomorrow. So we'll get more stories to go with that. I still have a couple of big picture pieces coming from Southern Swing and hope to find the time to be able to start dropping Big Me kickoff podcasts, but that has not been the case. But I'll keep plugging away over there over at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So keep an eye out for it.
Tony.
Just dropped a podcast yesterday, recapping some of my predictions from the daily thing that I'm doing, the 50 for 50, previewing the upcoming college football season, Big Ten stuff, and a bunch of Ohio State stuff. And so threw out some predictions and judged them to be terrible or excellent. And as I said, I wrote about Eric McFarland today. You can find that at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And also did a closer look, a deeper dive on freshman left tackle Deontay Armstrong, looking at some film clips and things like that, highlights from a few days ago that you can find there. And I'll be doing the next one here in the next couple of days on the on some freshmen. I'm not sure which. So you can find that at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And, of course, the Buckeye Weekly podcast on all of your podcast platforms of choice.
And Steve, in addition to finding out what you're up to, we forgot to mention that Assistant Athletic Director for Football Recruiting, Aaron Dunstan, has moved on to Michigan and taken a position there.
Yeah, she was a behind-the-scenes person, I think, that helped organize recruiting weekend visits. Obviously, when they bring in prospects, they want to make sure that everything is seamless with the hotel, the transportation, the meals, everything they're going to show them, academic presentations, NIL presentations, whatever it is that they need to do, football presentations, that player's meeting with Ryan Day. and also that logistics are all taken care of for the family. If they have anything that they want to see, those were all Aaron Dunstan's responsibilities, I believe, in putting those visit weekends and making sure that they were flawless and those kind of things, game day visits and everything else. She was just kind of a coordinator, I think, for, working hand in hand with Ryan Day and Mark Pantoni and the assistant coaches and everybody else on how to structure the recruiting aspect there for the football program. So, again, she's been there probably 2 or 3 years, I think, and she's taking everything that Ohio State has kind of put together in that space and going on to Michigan, which that cannot be construed as a good thing. And they gave her some ungodly amount of money, I would presume, to go there. And so, that kind of speaks volumes, I guess, in and of itself. I don't know if they got outbid for her or just decided that, that they were going to go on and give those responsibilities to somebody else. But at any rate, I really didn't have a relationship with her, never really talked to her, so I can't really speak one way or the other from a personal standpoint about her. But I do know she has been instrumental in a lot of the great things that have happened with Ohio State recruiting and working with families and all these other things, and it really put a good touch on that. So that's not a good thing to see. I don't take that as positive news in any way, shape, or form that she's going to Michigan to help them get the machinery set up there for Sharon Moore. Regarding myself, as Kevin said, I've got a couple of things still pending from the camp that I want to get out there. And then I'm going to regroup, recharge, and go over tomorrow and support our guys, Bill Kurlick and Patrick Murphy over there with the camp tomorrow. And we'll publish some of that stuff, plus some basketball content as well. And we're just going to keep grinding. It's mid-June. And camp starts in about 6 weeks. So it will be here before we know it. And the summer is one day at a time slipping away. It's about to get brutally hot here in the Midwest. It's going to be in the 90s the next probably week or so. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Being out at camp, Tony, that ain't a good thing. I can tell you that. On that field turf, it feels like 120. So, yeah, pack some water and, take it easy, I guess.
Buckeyes live every week. Oh, sorry, Tony.
No, I was just going to say with the Aaron Dunstan thing is it's an industry where people climb the ladder. So, she's been at LSU, Purdue, Kansas, and as Steve said, 3 years at Ohio State. So it's not like she was going to stay there forever. And I doubt she's going to stay at Michigan forever. It's just there are so many changes behind scenes, people climbing. It's no different than the coaching staff. So you're always just looking for the next job and looking for where you eventually want to be. So I wouldn't look too far into it unless you want to.
We are here every week, so please subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live. 271 consecutive. We will see you next week with Steve, with Tony, with Kevin. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here next week.